why do I want to cancel Jim's membership? Because he didn't extend his legs. And you're like, whoa, what is going on right now?
Welcome to Behind the Knowledge, a best hour podcast where we dive deep into the lives and stories of inspiring coaches from all walks of life. The two hosts of this show are me, Pat Barber, and my good friend and fellow coach, Todd Acuto. Each week, we'll sit down with the most amazing coaches we can find, uncovering their unique paths, the challenges they've faced, and passions that continue to drive them. Whether you're a seasoned coach, an aspiring one, or simply somebody who likes listening to stories of how people achieve the success that they have, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by the powerful stories and insights from the world of coaching. This is Behind the Knowledge. Let's jump in.
Hello everyone, we're back with Behind the Knowledge with another amazing coach unpacking stories and coaching and fun stuff. We're here with Bill. Bill Anthes? Is that how I say the last name?
It's good. Anthes. Or Anthes. Those are both acceptable.
Which one is the real one?
Yeah, I mean, whatever rolls off the tongue naturally for you works for me.
When you have a name that like nobody can pronounce, you're just like, yeah, whatever you say is fine, right? Same with me, Acuto.
Yeah.
Nobody gets it anywhere close to right, and I'm just like,
Right.
yeah, that's it. And they're like, really? I'm like, well, no, but I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
We're going to
fair
forget
enough.
this.
I like
So I still don't know how to actually say it, but at the same time, we're here with Bill. And is it William, first and foremost?
William is the very official naming
This
convention.
is a very official podcast.
We're here with William and Todd Acuto. Acuto.
Yeah,
and
nailed
my
it.
name is Patrick. Bill is, how do I say this? Like, I spent one seminar working with him. How long ago was that?
Man, that must have
10
been
years almost?
maybe almost, yeah. No, I was out already. So
Yeah.
2016,
You were
2015?
just out.
I just got out. Yeah.
Well, 2015 is going to be 10 years ago now. Like, we're
Yeah.
moving into 2025. Anyways,
Yeah.
9 years ago, right around there, I worked one gig with him. He had just got out of the military.
Yeah.
I had been on staff for a while. This was his first gig,
level one, yeah.
first level one, as a staff member, and I had an amazing time. Like, I had been doing this from 2015. I had been doing it for 10 years already, and just chatting with him and his thoughtfulness on everything that he did was like super memorable as an experience for me. Like in that back and forth, even though you were new to the level one staff, you're just like, how you perceived the world and how deeply you thought about everything was something that I like immediately was like, oh, I love this interaction.
Wow.
So that sat in my head and still sits in my head as like a really meaningful experience for me. And then we never worked together again.
Right.
But I watched what you've done on social over the last, it's been 5 years, 6 years now, maybe more.
It's tough to keep track. I mean, yeah, more, right?
Yeah.
Since
Then.
2018-ish,
Yeah.
maybe? Whatever
Yeah.
the math is on that.
And it's been like this evolution to me from the outside in, and it makes sense knowing our first interaction into the connection between mind and body and like going inside the head and unpacking that a bit.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that, I think. But
Yeah, let's hear the coaching journey. So
I
there's a lot of things you hit there.
yeah,
Seminar staff, obviously, doing your own thing. So what does that look like? Coaching journey.
when did you first start coaching?
And what was it?
Yeah. So started coaching actually after I graduated college, coaching the sport I played, which was soccer.
Oh, cool.
So, grew up an
Football
athlete.
for the rest of you.
There we go.
Yeah.
Grew up an athlete, benefited from good coaching, just as a big picture umbrella, and just love that, And then coaching CrossFit really happened probably when I got out of the Army for sure, which was 2015. My wife Ariana had a gym, CrossFit Morristown in New Jersey. So that was the first entry. She was already on staff for a long time, so of course it was like putting you into the fire.
Throwing you into the fire, but
Yeah.
but you've got a great example to learn from, right? Not only to be developed by her, but also to see what she does, and that's the expectation of the
Absolutely.
CrossFit coach.
And
Right.
and from, kind of stumbled upon CrossFit in that 08, 09 time frame. You click on the main site, it's like some word you don't know.
Yeah.
With a combination you're unfamiliar with,
Yeah,
and
you're
like
I
whatever.
don't get how this works.
But it just was such a fascinating and wonderful thing. And that was like the journal and the main site and every day. And it really became like, this new world to experience. And I was very curious about that. So I felt like, at 20, went away on an overseas trip and like didn't bring any Netflix shows or DVDs back when they existed,
Yeah.
but downloaded like every single article from the journal. And it was like
5,000 articles.
yeah, it was that, and it was just like, man, because it provided such comfort, and it scratched the itch of curiosity, but it continued to go and go, and so started coaching at the affiliate, of course, and then pursued what would it look like to be on staff, and got put through the ringer on from Kay. Nobody wants to be told like, all right, after class, circle up, run a group.
Yeah.
You're like, come on,
not again, right?
But she really held me to the fire, and I was fortunate enough to be on the staff.
I'd be curious to know, you made mention of playing soccer and having some really good coaches yourself, and then taking that and that kind of inspiring you to coach soccer. Was there anything, skills, traits that you saw from your soccer coaches that you started to develop as a soccer coach yourself and were able to carry over into your CrossFit coaching?
Yeah, actually, one of the best coaching lessons I learned was the first season after I was an athlete. So senior year, that next season came on the assistant coaching, and I was actually really struggling with it. I was the captain of the team the year before, All-American, like very good, and those are all my teammates.
Right.
Just 6 months ago, and I was like talking to pretty much my mentor, who was also a coach, one of the coaches. And I was like, kind of struggling with it. And he was like, listen, learn this now in your coaching career. Of course, we didn't know what that would be, but like, you can't coach them as if you're on the field with them. And you need to stay on this side of the line and learn how to be different. Because when you're on the field with them, you can lead, you can do whatever, but you have to totally, essentially reorient and not coach them how you would also want to be coached. And I was like, all right, my mind's exploding, and this is new. And so then every single person on the team is a new opportunity to pivot you. Like the coach had to change based upon
the individual, not just like, here's my way, figure it out, follow along, and let's do it. Right?
Some people that works great with.
Yeah.
Others terrible, and that applied in the military. That applies, obviously in the affiliate, in the behavior coaching, whatever that might be for folks.
Yeah, you learned that really early on in your coaching career.
So lucky. So lucky.
That's a good one of like, and you internalized that easily. Like you made it like, oh, I need to be a little different with each person. That's an interesting way to do it too. You're not on the field with them. Because I think a lot of us very organically go to coach the way that we've been coached.
Yeah.
Like that is similar to the way we love the way that we feel loved.
Yes.
So it's like the realization that there's other ways.
Yeah.
You did that. You just had someone lay that out for you. You lucky man, you.
Totally blessed.
It's one thing, but it's one thing for somebody to tell you that's what you need to do. It's another thing to figure out, like you said, your mind's exploding.
Yeah.
How do I actually take that information? What does that actually mean, and how do I apply it? So what was that journey like? How were you actually able to do that? Was there anything that you kind of like went through and was able to help figure that out?
I think the orientation of just never stop being a student. So learning, it's just what are the kind of, breaking it down in a progression. What are the, skills, traits, and attributes I need to probably have for this or that? And then like deviating from the fitness perspective and maybe getting more into other subject matter experts on that thing. So maybe it is public speaking. Maybe it is, physics, biology, whatever. Just be a student of your craft. And know it's a long road, and never stop being curious, and that's really kind of been it. And in addition, of course, to like asking others how they went about doing something, how what were some of the roadblocks they had. But then again, like I think not having the answer key is one of the best things that
you got to figure it out yourself, right? And nobody's answer is going to be the exact same.
Yeah.
You can tell me something, but until I do it on my own, it's not going to exactly translate perfectly, right?
Yeah,
I think
agree.
One of the fun ones with regards to that kind of development is knowing what you want to get from the situation. Like, so knowing what you kind of want the outcome to be, but not being tied to how you get it.
Yeah.
Is one of the fun ones. So you're soccer, you're like, I know what I want to get, but I don't know quite how to get there. I'm going to try what I know works. You try it, and you're like, did it get what I wanted to get? And being like more outcome driven rather than process driven. Allows you to develop a little faster as a coach because you're willing to take on board other stuff. Whereas if you cling to the idea of like, this is how it has to be done,
Right.
then you're slower to develop overall. Which I find to be a thing that has helped me a lot. Has been like, I've never really cared how it got done.
Right.
I was like, I just want you to get there.
Is your work in service to the arrangement, which is helping this individual?
Yes.
Right.
And like, I think that's an interesting, for me at least, so I learned, hey, you can't coach how you want to be coached, or you can't coach how it worked for you really early, and that was great.
Yep.
What I then learned more and more was like, man, I'm coaching a lot of classes here, or coaching a lot of people, and I feel like it's maybe for me more than them. And like, I need to be different. And even though, you ever see those World War II bombers where they have like the etch marks of like, you know, and I felt like for a long time, I had that going on in the back of my mind every time I coached a class. I hit 13 verbal cues, 15 tactile.
He's related it is so hard.
Double
right
the
now.
visual.
Dude, I'm doing that because some of the most impactful feedback I ever got at a seminar was from Cherie Chan, and like we're talking about a lecture that I gave that went over because I started sharing extra stuff, and like she finally got to the point. She's like, all right, cool. You can look at, here was the timeline. Here's what you did. Here's where you added extra movement or extra words. But then she's like, was that for them or was that for you?
Yeah.
And you're like, holy crap. Like all of a sudden I'm realizing that I'm out here trying to prove to everybody how smart I am, not delivering the information that they need, right? So I like everything that you're saying there resonates with me.
And I feel like it's one of those come to like, you know, look in the mirror moments. You're like, man, I'm doing like, because you finish a class and you guys know, you're like,
I smashed that. I smashed that. I did
was
all the things.
Yeah.
I coached the progression. I gave the cues. They hit the stimulus.
Yes.
And then people leaving there like, I hated class, right? And you're like, I had no connection or whatever that is, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, man, what's happening? And it's like, I need to be different.
Yeah.
I think ultimately I need to be different, and I need to maybe get curious on like, okay, so if, you know, that wasn't working for that person, what's going on? What's getting in the way? And I might have hit all the, you know, I might have passed with flying colors among my peers, but that's for me and my own, you know, frankly, my own insecurity that like, I don't know, am I living up to this red shirt? Am I living up to a head coach or affiliate owner or whatever it might be? And it's like, hey, let's step away from that. I don't mean to say like, don't make it about you in this like weirdly punitive way, but like, how can you change to be in service to those whom you're serving?
And I would argue that true service is gratifying.
Yes.
So it still is about you to some degree. Like you get some,
everything. Yeah, everything.
You're not going to
happens
take
is
that.
always,
You're not going to But I would say it's more gratifying in a way that you can like, in a deeper way that you can put words to. It's like if you're actually in service to others and you watch the response of what other people get.
Yeah.
It's like at that point, if them living such a better life elevates your better life,
we can live with that.
we can live with that. And then I kind of want to put context around what I said earlier, even about being outcome driven. I think you can be outcome driven with regards to, is the movement correct? Or outcome driven with regards to, is this person better than when they first came to me? And not just better like movement wise, but like better as a person. And if that's all you care about, it's like, how can I make this person better as a person when they walk away from me? Is there something I can do to support that? You're willing to entertain so many more ideas. Whether it be the fun side of it, or if you're like me, can you be stricter? Can you pull back and like just give them what they need for right now rather than making it like ridiculous? It's like, so yeah, I like that. That is good. That's good.
Now your journey of coaching has gone beyond soccer, CrossFit, seminar staff. You're coaching something different now to some degree, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a therapist now in private practice. So, you know, that evolution was interesting because, you know, I kind of realized with some of the events that we were doing between the ears, which were using physically demanding workouts or experiences.
Before we get it, what is between the ears? So like explain that so that we can talk about that.
All right, so Between the Ears is a company that my wife and I started right when I got out of the Army to try to bring transformative experiences and opportunities to really look within and kind of grow a little bit as a person to people without maybe having them have to quit their job and join the military or walk across the country. Like, how can we teach some pretty cool life stuff on Tuesday night? And how can that be implemented on Wednesday morning or just, when they come home from work?
Yeah.
So it started with this question, which, coming from the old quote of the greatest adaptation that occurs between the ears. It's like, when I first heard that, I was like, that's so much of like, yes, everything.
Yes.
When it comes to
so
like,
much yes.
like move your body in a way that's not very easy, that happens, So it was very descriptive of a mechanism really that I always found so fascinating, So with Between the Ears and the experiences and the types of, there's no winning this stuff. It's just like, what came up and going with that. I started realizing I was swimming in some deeper waters that I did not feel was, I didn't feel like I was the one to go there with people.
Equipped to handle.
Yeah, we were
handle
going deep into some people's stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually got feedback from a friend after one of these events, and she was like, you need to be careful with what you're unlocking and doors you're opening here, because you do this thing, you wrap up around 1, 2 in the morning, and then you send people home.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I never thought of it.
Yeah.
I never considered that. Like, I knew this stuff was transformative for people, but I always kind of heard of like that changed my life and made me a better husband or maybe a better person. Not the other side, because for every one of that, there's probably another person who's like, that was the worst thing of my life, and I'm not okay.
Or it opened up a door to something that I needed to deal with, and I don't want to.
I came in here expecting a hard workout, and I left seeing something that I didn't want. If you asked me before, so it's just like, geez, that's not blowing people's doors open is not what I feel is ethical or responsible or professional or anything without their consent, and certainly not if they thought they were just coming in to do a hard workout. So that led me to kind of exploring deeper, like, okay, more on that maybe psychological, therapeutic component. What's going on there? And again, just be a student, learn as much.
Yeah.
So kind of dove into that, that path, that world, and eventually decided to go back to school, get my master's. And
so now you can kind of open the doors and be like, hey, I'm here.
All right. Yeah, I got you.
If something opens up, I know how to deal with this and kind of not close it up to say don't feel that, don't experience that, but I can handle now somebody having...
It gives some tools to deal with it, right?
And then proactively also knowing like, ooh, we need to be very clear with consent, with not to be predictive, but to say, look, this type of experience may, you start seeding people's minds with certain questions and it gets them going. So now as a facilitator, just knowing that that's the direction you're going to continue to go. Do you want to go down there? Is it appropriate? Is the context right? What's the vibe like with a group? Yeah. So just helping you navigate this intersection of body and mind, just a little bit more maturely and professionally.
Do you teach other people how to do that, or do you just do it yourself for the people who come work with you?
So we work with, we actually have a seminar where we talk about this stuff a little bit more. We work with coaches to, and again, CrossFit coaches are such a great example of this because they're like, look, they're telling me about some stuff that I'm like, all right, but what about like dip drive?
I told you to push your knees out. Don't share that with me.
Let's just keep it to like, get the elbows up, get the elbows. And
so my husband.
So
my father.
And so we looking at frankly, it was like, how can we look to address the unmet, what we felt like is the unmet sort of topic of psychological tolerances. So, we want to do constantly varied, high intensity, functional movements, high intensity, relative to physiological and psychological tolerances. And I think CrossFit coaches, by and large, among the world, physiological we got hands down.
You got it. Yeah,
best.
I can see you. I know when to scale. I know all that.
I remember working gigs and people being like, I'm feeling like kind of like boo-boo hurt here because I'm finishing up my master's in exercise science and we've never once done what y'all did, which was the air squat.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, that must be a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah.
But what about the psychological piece?
Right.
What does that look like? And so that's kind of what we've tried to do with teaching other people. Of course, not violating scope of practice and saying, look, you're a therapist now, so bring them in, but that's been the advent from a coaching perspective.
For sure. And have you seen success with that and other people able to take on board that, like the things that you learned?
Yeah, we've seen people really, I think the feedback we get is people have expanded their vision.
Yeah.
So they're able to kind of pick up on just a different spectrum of the human experience within the CrossFit gym or within the workout. And, again, helping people just like a progression will help people teach quality movement and guide them along, and knowing maybe when we've reached the point and when we might have to pull off and do some specific work. Same thing with the a model for how do we begin to address training relative to psychological tolerances.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to ask is like, what skill set have you taken from that CrossFit coaching and been able to apply there? And it sounds like the same thing. It's like you've got to break down the complex concepts into the smaller pieces, layering them in one piece at a time, right? Adjusting accordingly to that.
Yeah.
Anything else as far as like skill set developed, coaching soccer, coaching CrossFit, that's still applied to coaching these coaches, similarities there?
No, I mean, I really come back to the being curious part.
Yeah.
So never stop learning, really, if you're kind of like, I've got this, it's kind of like the whole thing with like returning to the basics.
Yeah.
Same thing with returning to curiosity.
Totally.
And maybe what is, if you're really, really honest, what is the one area maybe where you're like,
Not so good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
But you're not. Like, that overcompensation.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So like just being honest, that's such a, that's like the key, I think, that unlocks the door to whatever lesson they're going to learn, being honest.
It's amazing how consistent that message is. It's like we continue to talk to these really high-level coaches that perform at the top of their industry and their skill set, and they keep saying that. It's like, oh, no, I know I don't know a lot, and I'm continuing to learn.
Yeah.
Like that's so huge. It's so impressive to see that, but it's not ironic that that's a consistent trait between all you guys that performs.
Are you a CrossFit coach who's feeling stuck in their development? You're not alone. Many coaches lack good guidance when it comes to how to develop as a coach. They either don't have strong examples they find themselves around, they may lack support from their gym owner, and they just feel unprepared going into their next credential. That's why we made the Knowledge Pro, to fill that gap. It's a mentorship program built for coaches like you. It uses the Knowledge Daily, our comprehensive video library, as well as extra content that we put directly into the Knowledge Pro on our live weekly calls twice a week to mentor you and get you to the next level of development. We've got progressions, we've got scales, we've got one-off tips and tricks, we've got full coached classes by level 4 coaches so you can see an example of what it means to do this job well. All of that will also be walked through each week on those live calls, so that you have a soundboard to bounce off of and a group of coaches looking to be better to help support you in your endeavors. Coaching isn't just knowing what to do, it's also knowing how to do it. And that takes 2 things. 1, an example, and 2, practice. Practice is on your end, you gotta go out there and do it. We can help provide that example and the support with the Knowledge Pro. If you wanna know more, click the link below and give the Knowledge Pro a shot. I look forward to seeing you on one of the next calls.
Is there a pitfall along the way that you kind of would like other people to avoid? Because it kind of sounds like you mentioned one before of like you're unlocking stuff and you kind of went a little too far. Is there like something you give out that'd be like, if I could go back, I would try to avoid this pitfall? Or like something like a mistake you've made where you're like, I don't know, does something come up?
I think it's a funny thing. We were kind of talking about this actually, I think a little bit yesterday, where like if we try to shield our kids from learning that gravity is a real force and it can hurt if you're not careful with it. And protect them overly. We have to allow them to experience the thing because it's like, oh, I'm going to teach you about this topic, but getting in the way of the experience that's actually the teacher. So with the pitfalls, I think some of the things I learned that, man, if I'm looking at myself, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't love that, but hey, got to take it, got to be open to it. Was making it about me as the coach, like my own validation.
Yep.
And then also, not everybody's asking for what you're giving.
Right.
So respecting that and like being like, you know what? I think, here's an example. There was a workout I was coaching that started off, I don't know, maybe it was like a chipper. Let's just say it started with 100 wall balls, 75 calorie row, 50 burpees. I'm coaching this and I'm like, all right, these are our affiliate people. These are like I know who's in this class and like this is an appropriate message. So I had this whole thing of saying like, do not drop the wall ball. That sound, that sound that hits the ground, right?
Yeah,
When the wall ball drops. Like do not make that sound until you've done a set of wall balls that you would have that you haven't done before.
Right.
And if that's 100 in a row, great. Like if it's 35, great. But do this thing that maybe scares you. Because we can say, look, hey, break it up, 4 sets of 25, 10 of 10, whatever it might be. And, it was a good group, got it all going. It's like, yeah. Gave like this kind of war speech. And I'm there, and I'm waiting, and then like, 13, 14 hits, and boom, the first one, and I'm like, oh no. And then like, do, down the line. And, I put that onto people. I told them how to be. I told them what to do. And then when that didn't happen, I was like, what's wrong with this person? How dare they? They didn't get it. They're
Right.
I judged them. Like, full honesty. Like, I was just like,
I told
you're
you
the character of
you
your.
didn't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
And your character sucks because you didn't do 100 unbroken wall balls or your swing was a little loose. Yeah. And it's just like, I look at that, I'm like, man, I don't like that. And so to unpack it.
Shame and guilt isn't a way to motivate
I know,
people.
right?
I think
I know.
I tried the same thing with nutrition. Pat knows me well enough to know how pretty much as much of a lunatic as I am, and when I decide to do something, I could turn the switch, and so I just figured everybody else had that same switch. So to the same point where it's like, hey, I told you what to eat.
Right.
Why are you telling me that you didn't eat that?
Yeah.
It's that easy. You just eat what I tell you. I told you to do 100 wall ball shots. Why'd you drop it after 14?
I love how you guys personally embody that.
Because you're the opposite.
I'm the opposite. When someone does that, I'm always like, oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
You okay?
Yeah.
Like I'll put it on. I'm like, hey, if you want to do it, try this challenge.
Right.
Then they do it,
Right.
and they can't make it. I'm like, hey, but you can see you can look in their face and see the people who actually tried. See the people who did.
Yeah, and it's like, look, I told you this is what we're doing, and it's like, yeah, but they didn't ask. They're not saying like their consent wasn't there, but like,
Right.
you can offer it. And I think that's the thing.
sure.
Pivoting to like, hey, offering it, and it's cool. Like, however, like this is your workout.
Yeah.
This is wherever this fits into your, why you're coming here.
Yeah.
But yeah, not making it about you.
It's interesting though, because I like to, like on that border of things, like I like to believe, and Todd actually probably aligns with you a little bit more, I like to believe a little bit more for people than they believe for themselves.
Yeah.
And not to say that they're failures if they don't make it,
Right.
but to like, a lot of people have the way they carry themselves is so low.
Yeah.
That when I give them the I think you can, because I actually believe in them.
Yeah.
And they do it, you watch what happens in their face. Like this belief of it's a little bit bigger in them.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fine line to walk of you don't want to just always them doing their own thing and just you do you.
Right.
It's I want to expect a little bit more out of you. And then I'm going to be very cautious of if you go too far, it's totally okay. You're good. Pull back. I'm gonna walk by. It's too heavy. Lighten it up. That's my fault. I take responsibility.
I mean, I agree with you on that. It just, I feel like I've got to have a deeper relationship before I push you there. It's like I need to know you enough to feel confident that today's the day. Because I think to your point, it's like you can give the greatest speech, you can have the greatest workout. I want 100 wall balls. You don't know what somebody else is dealing with. Not only hey, how did they sleep yesterday? What did they eat yesterday?
Right.
What are they mentally or emotionally going through? And is, like you said, is today appropriate for it or not? I wanted this for you. Doesn't mean you wanted this for you.
And I wanted you to do that so you could tell me that was a great class.
You
honestly, that's what it's about.
You are the most inspirational
and that was
coach of all time.
So now you're gonna satisfy my needs. That's not how this relationship
Did you guys
goes.
see the score that I got my athletes today?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
yeah, and
give me a break, right?
You guys both feel that, have done that.
No, I don't. Well, yes.
Yeah.
I think I've been there, right? Where it's all about you, and it shows how good, everybody's performance or how well I do. It all reflects me.
Interesting.
Right?
And where do you think that comes from? Just genuinely, where do you think that comes from? because I like when someone tells me a good job, but like I don't need them to say that for me to know whether or not it was a good class. Like there's no need there for me. So like if they said it to me, I'd be like, cool, thank you. And I'm gonna try. I would try to have them walk and be like, that's the best class I've ever had.
Right.
But not in an effort to support me. It's just like, I want to deliver that experience.
Yeah.
So where do you think for you two that comes from of like,
I don't know that it's even like I need somebody to tell me that was the greatest class ever. I want to feel like I performed my best. It's like this striving for excellence.
but them saying so is the validation?
No, me even feeling like them achieving it potentially, or me believing it based on how it worked. And I think for me it was like a pursuit of perfection, which was probably unhealthy to a degree, right?
Yeah.
But that's like that was the expectation that I set for myself. And so in every way that you're acting, I'm trying to achieve that with a number of cues, or the way that I coached, or how well you do the workout, or whatever that thing is. If I'm making it about myself because I want myself to be perfect or whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's interesting because at the time I wasn't aware of that's maybe the unconscious driver.
Right.
So through the process of peeling back those layers and all of that. But I also think that it comes from this, kind of, I'm a firm believer in service, and part of service is sacrifice. And to, find where can I ensure to do the best I can that this person coming in here is really having a wonderful opportunity, because you do this long enough, you also see that people carry around that downtrodden view of themselves, and it's like, hey, is there room for that to maybe change? And sometimes all the time, I think we need guides. We need people to challenge us, to push us. So really stepping into that role. We coached a workout this morning, and the options available were like 40 and 60 for sandbag stuff. And two people said, I went heavier. Not because I chose to do it, but because that was the only available option. But because of how you framed the sort of intention with this workout, it felt like, you know what, I'm gonna see what that's like.
Yeah.
And if I have to put it down, I put it down. And people that are maybe newer to this, or haven't had those people in their life that said like, maybe a win today is failing. And that was the whole thing with the wall balls. Like a win today is just, the thing at the boardwalk where you hit the you hit the thing and let's just see. Let's just be curious going into that. But yeah, I think out of a.
So how do you change that communication in a way to make it okay to fail, rather than like your failure, right? So you made mention of the two different examples. The wall balls, they dropped after 14. In your mind, and probably their mind at that point, their failure today. Hey, I went heavier and I probably had to break up more. I won because I went heavier, and I challenged myself to do that. Is there a distinct way that you communicate things differently, or you think it's just a framework that
I would kind of look to the culture you create and the environment in general for that. Like, how do people talk about failure after the workout? Are people saying, yeah, but and just, I think that's kind of almost like a more of a litmus test on the culture as a whole. Versus like a one-off trying to convince the person, no, you're not, like rationally, like that's a deeper one. So if people are in an environment and a culture that part of what we do is
celebrating doing hard things, even if it doesn't work out the way you want it to.
Yeah, like we found our limit today, comma today, period. That's it. That's what that means. Keeping it to what it was today, not who you are as a human being and the quality of your character.
Yeah, I see that a lot in the gym, and we talk about this a lot on the Knowledge Pro. Is like, it's like whatever you incentivize in your gym is what people are going to go after. And so if RX is the biggest deal in your gym and the highest scores are celebrated, the people who lifted the heaviest weight, regardless of how they did, if they're celebrated, well, then that's what everybody's going to want to do. And when you try to offer scaling options, they're not going to want to do that as freely. Whereas if you're highlighting, you're incentivizing somebody to try something new, even if it means less reps or moving better or whatever that is, I think to your point, that culture just gives people the freedom to not have to deliver to the RX. Or
it almost speaks to like individual stimulus for the day, right? So setting the tone for any given day, like that should be relatively variable. You know, like you can be like, hey, today's workout, you're gonna use a heavier kettlebell than you normally do, because that's the point of the day.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
And you might have to put it down a little bit more often. You won't get as many reps. Then other days, it's like, we need to get as close to 5 minutes as possible. So whatever we got to do to get to 5 minutes, like I need you to do that. And if you don't, then that's not the intention. Or today, this first set of wall ball, you're going to do the biggest possible set you can, even if it puts you in a hole.
Right.
Like that's going to, and that's the point of the day. But being intentional with the specific days, and then even within that, depending on the level of your coach, you can walk up to the individual and be like, hey, here's what I want you to focus on today.
which I think is like, implementing that lesson learned of like, hey, just carpet bombing everybody with unbroken wall ball challenge.
Yeah.
Being like, hey guys, let's think about it. Let's push ourselves. Let's, like think of what, and then seeing the 3 or 4 people who really that was actually probably more for.
Yeah.
Be like, Mark, you ready to fly into the sun today?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're going to be like, let's go. They're going to run through the wall. Whereas, Jim might be like, Jim's not doing it.
Well,
Jim's not for that.
Yeah.
So like,
and I think to your point earlier, like everybody has to be coached individually. I think you can take that same approach and you can use that concept of, hey, the biggest set you can do, and you can walk to everybody and be like, all right, Pat, your example of flying into the sun, let's see if you can do it unbroken. And then you go to Susie and you're like, hey, let's see if we can do 12. Whatever that is, you know what I mean? And I think that could be...
And I love the individual, but I would argue too, there's a certain sense of willingness to do it in a group. So with some people, like that individual nature of it, they'll never do on their own. But if it's part of the group, they would choose to do it and gain a lot of success from that. So I think there is also a balance there too, of being like, hey, today this is what we're all doing, regardless of whether we want to or not.
yeah.
And then seeing the result of that and being like, that didn't work for checking in and making them okay post event, and then noting that and not doing that in the future with those types of people, or noting how you could do that differently to where they would have that success.
Yeah.
Because they probably gain the most from that, like some of those people.
Totally.
I don't know.
And there's the beauty too of the individual knowing like, yeah, you know what? I'm not doing that today.
Yeah.
I'm not, and it's just like, yeah, okay, right on. You're expressing your own agency. You're saying, look, this is where I'm at. It might be a miracle you're here anyway. It's dude, we're playing with house money.
I got you. Yeah.
So when it's those days, it's like,
Of course.
5 doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Squat it. Don't even do them. Just like maybe work on your air squat for 5 minutes. Cool. But then the various varying intensity, also varying the type of experience we're looking for.
Totally.
And like, man, it's a playground. It's a laboratory when it comes, because that's where the gym.
Then you're digging in here.
Yeah.
Because I think the question there is always why.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily directly ask like why, but you can sometimes. It's like, I don't want to row today, and you go, okay, what's going on? Like why don't you want to row today?
Right.
And then you might find you get to places that are like, it has nothing to do with rowing.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Like, but there are times where it's like, my foot hurts. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. So it's like, I don't want to. Okay, that's a reason. I'm eventually going to figure out why you don't want to. It might be after class, but some days I'm going to be like, absolutely, no worries. Let's find something else.
I think the thing with like a higher level coach, them saying to you, I don't want to row today. Let's assume that's not because they just want to be defiant.
Right.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, we can go into that. And even that, like, I don't want to. We work through a model of psychological tolerances that looks at language and looks at the communication you're making.
Right.
And I don't want to. Okay, so now are we tracking towards convenience?
Yeah.
If someone says, I can't row today, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
Got a back thing, I got a this. It's like, all right, right on. I broke my ankle, great. Put it on. Can you, there's actually this thing where you can put your foot on the skateboard, you could do that. Yeah. I know you can't flex and extend, and they might be like, oh, I can do that.
But I don't want to.
Right, I don't want to. That's something that, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on there? And those are the trickier things, right?
Yeah.
Again, the physiological tolerance. You broke your ankle, there's rowing. We can put your bad boy on a boot or on a skateboard.
Yeah.
I don't want to. It's like, all right, now as a higher level coach, it's like, great, you like make your money, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is what
you
you're
dig in.
doing. Yeah.
Because that changes the game too.
It does.
Well, and I think a big part of that is back to what you said about making it about them and not about you. It's like, all right, you don't want to, let's figure this out, as opposed to, when I was a newer coach, and if somebody said that, it was a defiant thing, and I was like,
Right.
you're challenging me because it's about me, not about you. How dare you?
Yeah.
And it was less like I'm not running, I want to row. It was more like, whatever, no, I'm doing it RX, or I'm not doing it that way. And it's like, no, you're disrespecting me because you don't think that I know very much, and dang it, I do.
Yeah.
It's about them. Let's meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
A higher level of coach that has the humility to do so, and the curiosity, not only to learn and get better, but then also the curiosity of like, what's going on, man? We hear that question all the time at seminars and from coaches of like, how do you deal with the athlete that doesn't want to listen to you, doesn't want to scale, always wants to do their same thing? And I think people are looking for a specific answer. Well, do this, say this, whatever. But I think your point of like curiosity to understand where is this coming from makes such a huge difference.
When we're coaching those people, though, it's often like, who are you as a coach, right? Because if I was coaching you to coach an athlete and you asked me that, what do you do when someone doesn't want to? And you did say, what I usually do is I dig in and I'm like, well, you need to be softer. Like you need to go deeper than that because it's not about you. And I'd go in there. But then other people who are softer coaches by nature, like when someone says I don't want you, they're like, okay, no worries, absolutely, whatever. And I'm like, no, like you're the coach. You need to have the authority. So it's like, it's then being like, who is that coach and where do I meet them to get them to say the right thing? Because they need to take care of themselves first. Like we talked about this in the last one. In order to take care of other people, like you got to take care of yourself first.
Yes.
And so like when we're developing coaches, it's like, well, what are they bringing to us? Because the scenarios are going to be similar, but how you respond to it is going to be based off of your own pathology.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I find it fun.
I think it's interesting too when you have someone say, okay, we're rowing, they're like, I don't want to. Or probably like the Echo bike or Assault bike is a great one too.
Well, that's okay. If you don't want to, I get it because I
totally understand.
Yeah. And isn't that the funny thing where it's just like, I know, right?
Yeah.
Is it actually a problem?
Yeah.
They're just telling you, I don't want to row today.
Yeah.
Is that a decision or is that just a subjective thought? And
That's cool, man.
Like, I know.
Great job. Hop on the rower.
Yeah. Okay. So sometimes it's like, are we then being like, oh, it's your point of like, are we hovering? Are we zooming? Are we being too, I hate to say coddling, but when do we push? When do we pull? And that's, I think, the art of, the higher level coaches that is cool.
And what I find is like, it's so hard to teach that.
Yeah.
And I come back to it as like, I think you kind of just have to do it.
Yep.
You kind of have to experience, you have to go through the trenches and like feel it and be like, ugh.
Yeah.
But like, I think what we can do is we can highlight the situations and be like, hey, pay attention to this.
Right.
It's going to come up.
Right.
Like, I've experienced this and I want you to know it's possible. And so then when it happens, they're like, oh, this is the one he talked about.
Yeah.
How does this
Here we
feel?
go.
Like, how does this feel? Yeah.
Why do I want to cancel Jim's membership? Because he didn't extend his legs. And you're like, whoa, what is going on right now?
All right.
Yeah. Jim's a great guy. Jim's a
He's a super good guy.
awesome dude, good fan. Like, we're kicking persona non grata in Jim because he kind of was loose on the kettlebells today.
Yeah.
And I think kind of having some, again, honesty with this stuff, with coaches, especially the more experienced ones who have been seen a lot of people and been like, look, you're going to go through stuff as a coach and, use that information to peel back the layer and really, really look at having the experience. Sometimes you have to have that very difficult experience to learn, the essence of that lesson.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can look back to a few where I just go, oh, I handled that so poorly. And I learned so much from it about myself, about everything.
Yeah.
And like, I'm so much better because of it. But dear God, I wish that didn't happen.
Oh,
but I'm
it's
so thankful that it
uncomfortable.
did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And having the awareness and ability to lean into that, the curiosity. I'm like, all right, that sucked.
Yeah.
How do I not do that again that time?
Yeah.
Or at least not the same way.
Right.
Well, cool. I think that was awesome. So where do we find you? Where do people find your stuff? How do they get in touch with you? And is this one of your shirts?
It's actually a combo of, we did a partnership with Street Parking.
Yeah.
Oh, sick.
So we had these 4 kind of workouts for their folks. So Bill Anthes on Instagram, BTWN the Ears is on Instagram, Cariana Anthes on Instagram, betweentheears.com, btwntheears.com.
Oh yeah. And then for coaches, what do you guys offer in terms of, you have that seminar that you talked about?
Yeah, we actually have a seminar, we call it Ethos. It's a 1-day course where we dive into this stuff, and it's cool because it's hands-on, it's experiential in the sense of them being an athlete again, or a member, a participant. Theory, breakouts, concepts, all of that. Good conversation. That's a one-day course. We actually have one the end of the month in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Nice.
We've done some around the country, but yeah, we host them. A lot of times, owners will reach out to us and say, "Hey,
How do we do this?
can we, come host either as a, coach development thing, or we're not a big enough brand right now where, we can just say like, put up the flag and people
are
will
gonna
flock
go,
to
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So a lot of times it's more on that kind of like private situation.
one-off. Yeah.
But the public is obviously welcome to those, unless the coach explicitly says,
Only my
my people, and if they're
Yeah.
saying that, like, no offense, we're probably not gonna host.
Yeah. And no.
A lot of money
If we're
to do
locking
that.
all the doors, like,
Yeah.
might not be the right people.
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Probably ain't.
Yeah.
Well, I like that yours is an experiential one. We talked to HSN yesterday, the Nicole Cohen who runs that. She's like, our program, the main thing is you have to go through it. And that's one of the best ways to learn is by experiencing it as the individual who's going through it and watching the coach deliver it. And you're like, oh, we believe the same thing.
Right. Experience is like the great teacher.
Yeah.
Explanations might get you started, but the experience is really the.
How are you going to connect
value.
the dots?
I like it. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
dude.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Behind the Knowledge. Now, if you want help developing your coaching and to learn from us directly, check out the Knowledge Pro. There we host live calls with our coaches every week where we discuss content together and work on skills to improve our on-the-floor coaching ability. To learn more, you can head over to besthouroftheirday.com/the-knowledge. And if you found this content helpful, we're going to be releasing new episodes every week, so subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.